just drank bourbon. Okay, let's do Momocon stuff.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Everybody welcome Mr. Nolan North. All right, and we'll go ahead and get started. And Mr. North, if you'll just pick as you go.
Obi-Wan has his...
Hello there.
Hello.
JP versus the world. Welcome to Momocon.
Thank you. Great to be here. Short drive.
What is your nerdy origin story?
My nerdy what?
Origin story.
My nerdy origin story?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean?
Man,
Like,
how'd you get into nerd stuff?
Exactly.
oh. I like this. This is a good question, especially since we were just talking football and sports. So I'm a big sports fan. Never even imagined this was a job for me. I played baseball at college, North Carolina. I had a shot with the Braves, but I had a bad shoulder bump, and it wasn't. I would have been the guy middling in the minors. So I actually found during baseball, I had more fun sitting in the bullpen doing voices and telling jokes with my friends than, when the coach would get me up for relief, I would panic. It was probably not going to be my thing, but. Always loved comedy, and I could mimic my cousins and things like that. And Atari, I played Atari. Of course, the child of the 70s and 80s, it was mostly like, what are you doing inside? Get outside. So that was a limited time, which is good for parents to know. Limit the time, but buy the games. But I always found some people used to, people pigeonhole people like, oh, you're a sports guy, so you don't do nerdy stuff. You don't do that. And I think what's happened in nerddom is it's everybody. I mean, it is such a great form of entertainment. Whenever I tell people when they want to get into it, I said, it's really good business. I look at the parents, I'm like, it's really good business because it's recession proof. Recessions back when 2008, I remember, things were down and people were buying games because for $60, your whole family could spend hours rather than spend $60 on tickets to go to a movie for 90 minutes. I love the fact that since I was a kid, being a nerd when you're a kid got you beat up and you're bullied, and now it's like, we're all nerds. I mean, it's amazing when you look at pro athletes. I've met pro athletes that are like, you're Nathan Drake? No way, man. I met Wayne Gretzky because I did a soap opera. My first job was a soap opera called Port Charles, spin off of General Hospital. Did for 5 years. Dr. Ramsey. I wasn't a big barrel chested, good looking guy. I was just that kind of that prick doctor that nobody liked, but himself. New York Emmys, and somebody says, hey, this guy wants to meet you. And I turn around, it's Wayne Gretzky. He goes, hey, Dr. Ramsey. I thought it was a prank. And no, he was with the New York Rangers, and they watched soap operas. That's nerdy. It went from being kind of a derogatory word to like, you should wear that with honor. I mean, it's great. I mean, and it tells by all the people we get here. I get to go to these Comic-Cons all over the world. January I was in Bahrain, and there was like 2-hour line, and you're like, these really? Sweden, Finland, I'm in New Zealand, Australia later this year. I've been everywhere. I tell people who are Uncharted fans, I've traveled more than Nathan Drake has because of Nathan Drake. And it's great because my career has been one that I've had, Call of Duty and Deadpool and Assassin's Creed. I've been able to do so many things, and I just, just the fact that everything I got in trouble in school for, I get paid to do now is just a blessing. I'm grateful for it every day, and I'm proud to be, part of nerddom. I wish I could play better, but again, it's just that I spend so much time working on these things in a booth or going to a set or a film studio, and I'm inside all day. When I'm done, I hear my dad in my head. He says, "Get outside. Just sit outside on a chair and go, birds." That's nice. Yeah.
How has voice acting changed since you first started back in the early 2000s to now?
Great question. Specifically in video games, well, first of all, quick answer, animation, so much more is in streaming, and there's so much more material, but residuals aren't quite as good. Gaming is, my better answer for y'all is, when I started, when I was off that show, Port Charles, a guy who worked on it had told me, because then you go do, every actor does JAG and CSI Miami, and you do those things and you're trying to find the next thing. I tested for new shows that, you didn't get, whatever. And a friend of mine said, hey, you're always goofing around with us doing the voices, you should talk to my voiceover agent. So I went and met with them, and they were like, yes, I did this demo tape, and they signed me. Off we went. They said, listen, it's really hard animation, breaking in. But video games, if you're open to that, I said, it's tough because it's 4 hours screaming, and you'll just pay the base rate. And I'm like, what is that? They go, it's $750. And I'm like, well, I'm going to scream at my kids for 4 hours for free, so I might as well take that. What was interesting though is I literally felt like the voiceover at that time was like, grenade, get down, just its direction. But I felt it was like part of the sound design. It wasn't about me, it was about the games. And I came from a theater background, after college and everything, and bounced around. And in New York, I just said, this is what I'm gonna do, and I started doing theater. And there's an old adage, is that the play is the thing. It's about the story, it's about the player, not about you. And you were part of sound design. And my thing was like, I don't want you, as the gamer, to, oh, I know who that is. You just wanted to be, oh, that's some soldier, that's some alien, whatever. And what happened is it slowly got so much more, it got deeper, narrative storytelling started to become a thing. And I had done so many jobs, and I tell people, with any job you do, be the guy people want to work with. And I always, somebody told me once, it's easier to be 15 minutes early than on time. I live by that. Because I hate being late. And then have a good time. Make people laugh, because it's a good time for me too, and it keeps me free. And then try to finish early so they can get home to their kids or get to lunch early before the next session they have to do. And they will hire you again. And with no residuals in gaming and stuff like that, it was a volume business, so do more. And I have a pretty good range of different kind of voices I could do, so, and accents, so I became kind of a go-to guy. So when it became more narrative and they started getting a little more layered, and they were like, oh, but he's also an actor, which I also tell people, I want to be a voice actor. It's like, be an actor. Be an actor first. It doesn't matter how many voices you can do, be an actor first. And it just, I was at the right place at the right time, which is so much how life is. That when that started, then they got into motion capture, and they're like, hey, you've been on camera stuff, so this would be, and I'm like, yeah, and I tell people, motion capture is like high paid theater. There's nothing, it's paid theater. High paid is great, because it's just one of those things. So I've been blessed to just see this, how this has risen to become the art form it is today. Things like Uncharted, Last of Us, these great games with great storytellers, amazing people who make it all happen, and it's enjoyed by so many people. So yeah, it's crazy. So I'm gonna go over this. I'm going back and forth, but yeah.
Hi, Joshua Morales from Giant Bull here. My question for you is, you were speaking about your previous experience not only as a baseball player, but in doing my research, I also know you have some experience in journalism as well.
Yep.
With all of that experience, how has that not only informed but strengthened how entertainment affects you, or how you understand it as you've continued to do it over the years?
Wow, those are good questions. Yeah, I chose North Carolina because they had a great journalism program. I mean, there's famous people like Roger Mudd, Charles Kuralt. One of my favorite teachers was a guy who walked with Martin Luther King, Chuck Stone, who was out of Philadelphia, and man, bow tie, he smelled so good. I know that may sound weird, but that dude, he just exuded class. He just was, and he was he was the best. He was kind of like a bit of a mentor for me. And, you know, I told him, I said, yeah, I figured sports are over, you know, I'd be going to ESPN and be a sports guy. But I was never really a nerd for statistics and things like that. These guys can spit stuff out. And yeah, so, but playing baseball, I never had the opportunity to do internships and things like that. So I ended up going to grad school in Boston. And then right out of there, I got a job as a reporter for a year in New York, New Jersey. Driving around a little beat up Honda. You know, sometimes I think my cameraman had a drug problem, so I have to do it myself. I interviewed Al Gore with a thing like this. He was like, oh, what school is this for? I'm like, it's an actual station, I'm sorry. But I mean, I didn't get to do sports. I had to do death and murder and stuff, and it was this, I hate it on the news. I don't think it's news. It's like, go talk to the family when their teenage son is shot in Newark. And it just wasn't in my heart. And I remember making the choice to, I'd rather be broke and happy than, you know, have a paycheck and continue on this path. It's funny because the day I called to give my 2 weeks notice, I called it, I got the news director on the phone, and I said, see, I need to talk to you. She goes, oh God, this is great. Doug Bell has left the Buffalo affiliate. We want to offer you the head anchor job in Poughkeepsie, New York. It's not crazy, but, and I just went, oh, I'm flattered, but this is my 2 week notice. Hold on, I gotta go to my office. What are you, hold on. And we had a big time. I told her what I was gonna do, and she was like, if you ever need a job, if it doesn't work out, you need a job, find me and you have one. And it was great, but that experience, the experiences I had, the things I saw, horrible things I saw, the people I met, though, the people I got to see in journalism, it informs so much of what I get to do, either in an audio booth or on set with characters. Because you know, there's things that if you just can kind of keep those in your memory banks, and the things you learn and the things you do. So, you know, I've joked about it. I say, yeah, I got all this education. I don't do anything with it, and that's a cop out. I absolutely do a lot with it but I think you can do that. It's everything in life. You know, when you see people who have, you know, I grew up without a lot of money, and then, you know, the great thing about being poor is you're never afraid to be poor again. It's just like, well, I mean, I lived, I got through it, you know. I think what it does is just, you know, being a journalist and seeing things. First of all, you can play a journalist, you know, because I've done that. But it also got me in front of a camera. It got me, I know how to use a camera. You know, how to use a microphone, how to set up shots, things like that. So when you're on set, you know that the camera's sitting up there, and I can look at the, when I did Hysteria here, we shot in Covington, and you know, you walk on set and like, what lens you got? What are we doing? And what's the setup? And they show me and said, all right, so I said, where do you want me here? And they're like, yeah, you know, you can find there's little things that you pick up on it. But from that journalism experience, it was really just meeting people, talking to people from all walks of life, from the top politicians to, you know, some family who just lost their house in a fire. You know, it was just, it gets you close to humanity, and I think you can then, I mean, I'm not like a heady actor, I don't think, but I never forget things. You know, and it's just like this. You build up this kind of library in your head, and hopefully, you know, then, you know what, this reminds me of that, and you know, you use that. I can't tell you how you use it, because I haven't quite figured that out yet, but it's there, and somehow the camera catches it. You know, you don't have to actively think about that kind of stuff. So I hope that answers the question. I'm not quite sure. I'm coming to you next, but I've got to go over to this guy. I'm going left, right. See what I'm trying to do?
James with Momocon podcast. With Uncharted being as big as it was as far as the video game franchise, and then for the fans finally being satisfied with the movie adaptation, can you speak to voicing Nathan Drake and then his appearing in the film, that transition? Because at one point the fans wanted the film probably 10 years prior to the release, and hoping you would play the role that you voiced. So what's that like?
You know, truth is, understanding the business of Hollywood was never going to happen. it just is what it is. And I'm very happy with what they did. Yeah, we finished the first one, and I think Hugh Jackman, they were talking about Hugh Jackman at some point doing all this stuff. You know, you're talking about, movies are made, the Uncharted movie made money before it ever shot a frame of film. It's foreign financing. For those of you who know, it's a very complicated but very simple formula. You get Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg, that thing is back financed and done, and they're putting money in their pocket. Now all they have to do is go shoot it. Then there's then they sell tickets and Netflix. They go to Netflix and all that stuff after. That's gravy. It's all back financed, and you need a name that people know. If they made the Uncharted movie with Nolan North, all the gamers would come out and see it, but people, first of all, it would never get financed. And I'm not trying to knock myself. I'm good at what I do. I know it's not about talent. It's about name, and that's fine. You know, and I was glad that they finally got it up on their feet. What made me really happy is after they went through all those machinations of, oh, we got to get, you know, we want to, maybe it's Hugh Jackman, and maybe it's, you know, Chris Pine. I thought Chris Pine was good. I did. J.J. Abrams was a fan of Uncharted, and he put me in the Star Trek movie. And you know, just off to the side, it was, you know, but you know, I remember in a makeup time, I was sitting with Chris Pine, and I said, you know, if you ever get that offer, you should think about it, because he looked the part, he had that kind of swagger to him. We're about the same height. I was like, this could be cool. But what I think they did that was interesting is, and people at Sony told me this, and Ari Arad told me, he said, first of all, video games are very tough to make films out of. They don't really do all that well, except like the horror ones. Because when you take, you know, if you're playing Uncharted, you're Nathan Drake, not me. You're Nathan Drake, you're Nathan Drake. You know, you're on the stick. You are in it. Now you gotta sit there for 2 hours and watch somebody else that doesn't sound like the guy you know doing things. It's a passive experience. They said, we don't wanna, you know, intrude on what you guys did with those games, but where was Drake in his 20s? Well, that automatically rules any chance of me doing it. But you know, then they go and get arguably one of the biggest film stars in the world, who's a fan of the thing. You know, his brothers played. He's athletic. He's unbelievably athletic. I mean, he can do it. And you know, and then they can put their own stamp on it, and you know, then do scenes like falling out of the plane as an homage to the game. And I thought they did a good job with it. I felt like they had to edit it down to fit a time constraint the studio probably wanted. So there were parts of it I thought were a little rushed. But I thought Mark did a great job. I mean, I love the fact that Sully had a cat. I think that's funny. It's their own little thing, and it's a cat. You know, it's like that. You know, I love that little. And then, you know, he doesn't have a mustache. At the end, he has the mustache. Yeah, I thought it was really well done, and it leads to the opportunity for more films that they want to do. Will that happen? You know, who knows? But and to be part of it, I was honored to be part of it. Of course, it was October 2020, middle of the pandemic. They're like, would you mind if we flew you to Barcelona, Spain by Friday? I said, you can fly me to Topeka, Kansas by Friday. I'm stuck in my house. So, and then I sat in a hotel room in quarantine in Barcelona. I'm like, this looks like a pretty city. Had my nose swabbed at least 40 times during that 4 or 5 days I was there. But it was a great experience, and yeah, I think you know, they did a really nice job with it. I hope they make more. Yes.
This would be the last question, by the way.
Really?
Yes.
Well,
Let me go.
real quick. I'm Joy with Momocon podcast. I was gonna ask the exact question he was asked, except I was gonna say that I am a huge fan of the Uncharted series, and Nathan Drake was on my first video game loves, and so it's surreal for me to be sitting here with you, and I did sign a petition for you to be in the movie back in the day, so huge fan.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it was it was a blast playing Nathan Drake, and it's so much my personality. So I can't climb like that though. Yeah,
Hello, Mr. Nolan.
you're next. We're gonna get two more. I can make it fast.
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Nolan. Okay, Andy here. And you played many unique personalities throughout your impressive career. What was something you learned from a character you played?
Something I learned.
From a character you played, yes.
I did Blaze and the Monster Machines for Nickelodeon.
I remember that.
And I learned that centripetal force and centrifugal force are two very different things. I wish. Go ahead. Yes.
Of all the different characters that you've done voices for, which one would you say you had the most fun with, where you could just kind of cut loose and put a little bit more of you into the role?
This is gonna be weird. So Nathan Drake is me. That's my favorite role I've ever played. I got to be me. I got to be the lead of something. I learned so much as an actor with these other actors. It's all with other people. It's like doing theater, like I said before. Amazing. But if I'm just talking sitting in a booth and going crazy on a microphone, there's nothing better than Deadpool. Because they would write amazing stuff, and my brain, which I did a lot of improv stuff in my past, and it was like, he can say and do anything, and there's no repercussions. And it's one of my favorite roles. In fact, when we did Hulk vs. Wolverine, the first time I did it, I've been doing Wolverine and the X-Men for the same producers. I was Cyclops. And they came to me and they said, we did this movie. We had a Canadian actor, I don't know who it was, not Ryan. And he's great, but we don't think he's quite Deadpool. I'm like, okay. He said, you know Deadpool? I'm like, absolutely. Do you know how you always say things between takes that will get us all canceled or fired? Right, yeah. They said, we think that's Deadpool. They brought me into the studio, told me the premise, everything. They had a monitor up, and they said, the film's done, we're gonna show you some scenes. I'm like, all right, let's get started. I'm like, where's the script? They said, wait, this is the fun part. We're gonna show you this scene with no audio. We've taken Deadpool's audio, make it up. So I mean, they would feed me some lines, the writers would feed some lines, but I just made stuff up. And the entire movie is just like me, just off the top of my head. And I said, that's crazy. They go, that's Deadpool. So I feel this this kind of kinship to that, and he can say anything in any situation. And you could be a very serious moment that he just break that fourth wall, which is brilliant. Just be like, this is going well, isn't it? And then and then back, and you just every time I have a Deadpool session, the thing is, what I try to do is do it as whatever lines they may have, but then anything that comes to mind. Hey, can we try this? And throw that out there. Inevitably, many of those things end up. And we did the similar thing with Nathan Drake, all mocap. But then there'd be days where you have to do in-game lines, and and what it was, we called it panning for gold, and chasing the picture. Because what they would do, they'd have a developer run through a level, and I would just watch it. And let's say it's Sully's with me, so Richard McGonigal would be sitting there, and we would they'd have a couple lines written, like, I think it's up there, Sully this way. And you have some lines like, and then Sully's climbing. I'm like, you got a great ass, Sully. And everyone would laugh, but you just make. And I love. There's a famous one in Uncharted 3, running through a chateau. Through here, follow me. Hey, popcorn machine. And I because it looked like a popcorn machine to me, and that's in the game. And I love meeting fans who say, I'm playing and I see something, and in my head I'm like, hey, that looks like, and you say popcorn machine. It's crazy, you say things, and I hear that from a lot of people. I'm like, yeah, because I was saying it like if I was just, remember Mystery Science Theater 3000? They were just that's what it was kind of. And now they didn't use everything, but they used certain things in it, and it worked because it made, the best thing about Nathan Drake is he's all of us. He's just a guy. My favorite part, Drake's Fortune. One Ordinary Man, One Extraordinary Adventure was the title, was on the box. And it made us, that's why I think it's become such a thing with men and women and young and old. he's trying his best just to get through the day, you know? Guys have to, and what was great is he didn't get the treasure at the end. You know, Sully, I got, you know, just enough to keep them afloat. He never got the big score, and he destroyed cities along the way. I mean, it's just, you know, I think there's I think a kinship we all feel with him. It's the same way with Bruce Willis in Die Hard, or Indiana Jones. You know, I remember when doing the thing where I had to hit somebody, and I did this big hit, and I was like this, and I went yeah. And everyone kind of laughed, and Amy Hennig, our creator, she said, I like that. And I said, have you ever punched anyone? She goes, no. I said, I have. I've been in fights. I almost broke my hand when I hit some guy. I almost knocked this dude out. It was just this big stupid fight in college or whatever. It hurts. I said, you know, enough of these big game heroes, you know, hit him, yeah, take that. It was like, you know, running off. He's like, come on, Nate, we gotta get out of here. Yeah, find some ice. You know, things like that just would be, and I think people just kind of, you know, as evidenced by its success, I think people were drawn to that kind of thing. And it was, but it's not just me. It was everyone at Naughty Dog. It was Amy Hennig. That came out of her head. She gets all the credit in the world for it. The other actors, the artists, the programmers, they had to make all those dots come to life. The first 3 games, there was no facial capture. And there was a guy, Eric Baldwin, I remember his name. He was in charge of facial animation. Just every time I was like, you know, if I'm sitting there going, yeah, he would make my face do that. And I told my wife about it. She goes, that guy knows your face better than I do. I left her for Eric. Didn't work out though, because he's a guy, and I was like, oh, gross, put that back on. So no, but it was a honor to play him. I'm constantly, I'm meeting people who are now bringing their 12, 13-year-old kids now dressed like Drake, and it's like they met me in 2009 or whatever, when they were dressed like Drake, and it's just that role. But I love coming down here, and I'm Rick Dofen. I've never played Uncharted. Great. I like Deadpool. I like this. I like that. You know, it's just so much fun to do what I get to do, and I just hope they keep that with it. My big goal when I became an actor is like, don't ever serve food again. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but this is better. That said, both my kids are now waiters because they want to do this. So, I get. Are we out of time? I guess.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
And if you could provide like your social media handles for people to be able to follow you.
I'm real active on social media. Really Nolan North on Instagram. And I think I'm Nolan _North on Twitter, X, whatever it is. Yeah, I think it's Nolan North because somebody tried to sell me Nolan North. At Nolan North, I'm like, yeah, keep it. Good luck with that. Yeah, those are the only 2 I really do. And I do want to say one other thing. If you're familiar with the rapper Logic,
Yeah.
we did a film last year, and it's been accepted in Tribeca Film Festival, and it's in New York, June 6th. We do our big premiere, and it's a really funny, super irreverent. I mean, it's old school comedy, kind of like it takes no prisoners. He is unbelievably talented. Met him at a con. He's a massive fan of mine. I was like, when my kids find out that I met you, they're gonna freak out. The fact that you know me and you're a fan, unbelievable. And he's so creative. We had so much fun. Kevin Smith, executive produced, and he's the editor. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Ron Perlman, and he financed the whole thing himself. And he's a crazy genius. And I mean, it will bring everybody of every belief, religion, color together in comedy heaven, in my opinion, because it's funny, and I get to carry a big gun. It's fun. I haven't seen it, so it's bad Don't blame me. No, but it won't be. It's Tribeca. De Niro said, "Hey, it's good. Let's bring it in." You know? So check it out when it's out. I don't know. I don't know how the festival circuit technically works, but I hope it does. I hope it does well. He deserves it. He's unbelievably talented. And Adney writes sick Parvis Magna on his paper, and he had it tattooed. Sent me the picture. It's on his neck. But he can get away with the neck tattoo. But I was like, he sent it to me when just after he had it done. It was all red. I'm like, that looks painful. He goes, it was. So anyway, thank you all for all the support and everything. I know this price. Somebody else has to come in. I got.
And then,
Go home.
if you don't mind,